Today I am, among other things, trying to pick a whole bunch of fruit. I got a few containers with me. We're coming into that peak, ridiculous, wonderful, abundant moment where it's kind of hard keeping up with all the different types of small fruit in particular. We're in late June into early July. The Gumi is the one that I'm going to be talking about today in particular, but we'll also be picking Jonker Vertet's red currant. It's a lovely early season red currant, and get ready to start harvesting and processing all the black currants. And the raspberries are crazy right now too. It's wonderful, but it's also a real thing that we have to be aware of and make the time for. What I want to hone in on in this video is a discussion about Gumi, and it's a couple ones off to the side there next to this pond that we dug a few years ago. It's starting to lose a little bit of water as we warm up, and talk about some of the site considerations and observations we've had over the years about what Gumi wants and what it's capable of doing, and who is it. So this diverse bank next to the pond, we planted basically the same. We dug the pond in the winter of 2021, I believe, and in the spring of 2021, before things started leafing out, we added as much diversity as bare root plants through here. So everything in here is planted: the rhubarb, the currants, the senna, the echinacea. It'd be fun to do a deep dive tour on how that worked. I think it worked beautifully. And Gumi, yet again, proving itself to be pretty much extremely competent wherever we put them, with a few exceptions which I'll explore. Gumi is Elaeagnus multiflora. It is a member of the autumn olive family. It looks familiar to folks that know autumn olive, but in a colder climate, at least as far as I can tell, I've never seen a single seedling come up from seed, even though they're so productive. This is a mid-season, a summer cropping Elaeagnus family plant, and yes, it's still astringent. It still has some of that tannin and that complexity there, but the fruits are quite a bit larger than autumn olive, and if you get them at peak ripeness and it's the right variety, they're quite sweet. They're astonishingly productive. Here next to this pond, they get a pretty good amount of sun midday, but they've got that's off to the east, so it's morning shade, and late day it's a similar picture, so it's not a full sun position, and there's no amendments that are added. This is a nitrogen fixing plant. Basically, as long as it has some amount of sunlight, it can do the rest on its own. Drier soils are better, and even though it's next to the pond, it's up on this berm, so the root zone will never flood here. And it's easy to pick handfuls of these things, pop them in, pull the strings out. The smaller varieties make seeds you can chew. The bigger varieties, you can still chew them, but they're not as pleasant. We'll do another video talking about red gem, sweet scarlet, and carmine, what the differences are between them as some of the main cultivars that are out there. But boy, oh boy, it's just been such a wonderful plant getting to interact with. So one of the first main notes I want to convey as we learn more about this is Gumi is extremely competent in complex situations. So unlike, let's say, sea buckthorn, which really demands full sun, lots of airflow around them, they can have plants grow up and through them over time, but it's to their detriment. They slowly senesce and die away. Gumi, you can see here, it's got sunchokes growing through it. There's a giant pear starting to come up and over, another autumn olive growing in there, and the Gumi's doing just fine. It's leaning a little over the water, but doing just fine. And to take that idea a little further, here's one really tucked in underneath the canopy of autumn olive and pear. Lots of other plants around, and it's making a ton of fruit. I mean, that's just a few inches worth of fruit on one branch. And these plants can get quite a bit taller and bigger than they are right now. These are still pretty young, but you can see it's very productive and growing just fine even with all this competition. So here's autumn olive, there's pear, and yeah, at some point we'll want to cut the autumn olive back, so when the fruit is ripe on these, we'll cut them in order to release the Gumi here. But underneath it all, it's still producing. There might be many hundreds, if not upwards to 1,000 fruit on this one shrub. Our friend Ben Falk up in Vermont, which is solidly zone 4, I think there was one year that got down to -28 or -29 Fahrenheit, and his Gumi was damaged from that. But other than that, average years down around -20, -18, -22. They're hardy to that, which is pretty crazy. So in our climate, central New York State, I don't think there's going to be a winter where we have to worry about much damage at all. We got to -18 and -20 these plants experience with absolutely no dieback whatsoever. So very cold hardy too. So a note here to share, you can see the catbird sitting on those metal arches in front of me. There you go. That's one of the primary consumers of the Gumi fruit is, for us at least, catbirds. I bet other birds of that similar size really like them. The good news is that what they prefer is to pick the fruit from higher up. So like these branches are the ones that they pick from the most. So as the Gumi starts to get taller than us, you know, maybe they get to be about 8 feet or 10 feet tall, any of the fruit that's hard to reach at all for us is wonderful, because that's the preferred fruit of the wild friends. And they can only eat one fruit at a time. So even if you have a huge amount of birds finding your Gumi patches, if you've got a few plants growing, you've got all the fruit you want. They've been hammering these for days, like all day, every day, and there's still lots of fruit. This is one of our more intense production zones in here. There's about 10 plants. We've added in a few more. And just to give some context of another scenario that they are competent in and comfortable in, so these have been very productive for a few years. That's looking east again. This was a white ash grove. You can see the ash are dying, and this grove was cut out and cleared so that we could plant in a new successional arc, and Gumi as a nitrogen fixer pioneer species felt like the right candidate. And we'll be adding in shellbark hickory, we'll be adding in northern pecan, maybe some apricots, maybe some peaches to move up in succession later. But here's the late day access. It's quite a bit covered by trees here. So this is really only a handful of hours of direct sunlight. I'd call this a partial shade glade in here, and they're cranking it. We have found that deep in the winter, when we get to the coldest moments, rabbits will turn on a switch and eat everything they can that's low and young wood. So really, really fine tip wood, for example, like this, will get consumed by rabbits. So if you have lots of rabbits in your landscape, you might want to put protection around them. You can see where they girdled some of the bark there, but they did not kill that stem. But the good news, at least for us, where we've got immense deer pressure, I've yet to ever see deer browse on Gumi, either during the growing season or the winter. Not to say that that's a guarantee, but that's been my experience, and that's really, really lovely. Any plant that doesn't get chewed on by deer is helpful for us. I'm going to switch into picking mode rather than talking about plant mode, because I've got a lot to pick before I leave today. We'll try to share some notes. We're making Gumi soda right now. We made Gumi wine last year. We'll try to save enough seed where we can offer fresh, viable seed for the winter. I made a video talking about how we are growing them from seed. It's a little tricky, but not that big a deal. Something else to note is that if you like red currants, in particular early bearing, Jonker vertex here is a very, very early red currant. The maturation time of the average Gumi and the average early red currant overlap. So if you wanted to do Gumi and currant jams or wines together, they're very compatible. This is a plant that is partially shade tolerant and loves lots of nitrogen. This is a plant that gets a little bigger and confers nitrogen to the soil. And so you can do a Gumi red currant harvest all in one stroke if you wanted to do that. Anyway, some notes on Gumi. We'll keep adding more as we learn more and have some time to do so. Thanks for watching.